I want to quickly refute the myth that women won't be able to get treatments for ectopic pregnancies if a bill of complete and total abortion abolition is passed. Keep in mind these bills are sometimes also referred to as equal protection bills. So first of all, let's distinguish between abortions and treatment for ectopic pregnancies. So the most common method of abortion in 2020 in the United States was abortion by pills, or in other words, chemical abortion. The pills used in a chemical abortion are most commonly mifepristone and misoprostol. Keep in mind that neither of those pills are used to treat ectopic pregnancies. The most common surgical procedures for abortion in the United States are the D&E procedure and the D&C procedure. In a D&E abortion, the child is ripped apart limb by limb inside of the uterus and then extracted. In a D&C abortion, a suction catheter is inserted up a woman's uterus, and that suction catheter then rips that baby apart and extracts it through the tube. So when you see that picture of the cup with a bunch of blood and body parts in it, that's the D&C abortion. Now let's talk about the three options for treating ectopic pregnancies. The first is expectant management, in which you monitor the situation, and typically the child will dissolve on their own and no active intervention is necessary. The second treatment option is you surgically remove the child from the woman's body. Keep in mind, in the case of an ectopic pregnancy, the child is implanted somewhere other than the uterus, and it is extremely unlikely the child will be able to survive until viability. Keep in mind, this is not considered an abortion because you're not intentionally killing the child, and this is very important. For example, if we take a look at the South Carolina Prenatal Equal Protection Act of 2023, which is a bill of abolition, and we take a look at section 16-3-107A, it says medical care or treatment provided with the requisite consent by a licensed physician to avert the death of a pregnant woman that results in the accidental or unintentional injury or death of her unborn child when all reasonable alternatives to save the life of the unborn child were attempted or none were available does not constitute a violation of this article. So the key part you want to focus in on there is that results in the accidental or unintentional injury or death of her unborn child. So if it is medically necessary to ultimately remove the child from the woman's body, in the case of an ectopic pregnancy, for example, in order to save the life of the mother, as long as you're not intentionally killing that child, which you're not in the case of surgical removal of that child, that is not considered an abortion. That would still be allowed under this bill. Now, obviously, if we had the technology to allow that child to develop outside the woman's body, we should do so. Keep in mind, at this time, we don't have that technology, so the unfortunate consequence of averting the death of the pregnant woman is the unintentional death of her unborn child, but that is not considered an abortion, nor is that a violation of the Equal Protection Act. That brings us to the third option in treating ectopic pregnancies, which is the injection of methotrexate into a pregnant woman's butt. Now, keep in mind, in 92.4% of cases of ectopic pregnancy, the child is already dead at the time of the diagnostic ultrasound. It's perfectly acceptable to use methotrexate injection to treat an ectopic pregnancy if the child is already dead, which is the case in the majority of ectopic pregnancies. However, if that child is living at the time of the diagnostic ultrasound, it would be unacceptable to then kill that child through a methotrexate injection, because keep in mind the way that methotrexate injections work is they intentionally restrict that child's cells from dividing, thus intentionally killing the child. That would obviously be unacceptable under a bill of equal protection, since that is in fact murder. Now, an obvious objection that someone may raise in the comments of this video is that methotrexate injections can also be used to cause abortions, and that's true. For example, in poorer countries, instead of the abortion pills, mifepristone and misoprostol, they'll sometimes use a methotrexate injection to cause an abortion. Obviously, that's wrong. Obviously, that's murder, and obviously that would not be allowed under a bill of complete abolition or a bill of complete equal protection. Now, I want to point out, however, that I have no concerns that women who are getting methotrexate injections to treat an ectopic pregnancy in which the child is already dead at the time of diagnostic ultrasound, I have no concerns they would get prosecuted. And the reason is, when a woman goes in and she gets a diagnostic ultrasound, it's revealed that there's an ectopic pregnancy, it's revealed that the child is already dead, and then she then gets a methotrexate injection. That's all going to be recorded. That's all recorded in medical records by doctors. So she would ultimately have proof that the child was already dead at the time of the methotrexate injection. So I'm not concerned that a woman like that in that scenario would be prosecuted, charged, or anything like that. So as you can see, treatment for ectopic pregnancies would still be allowed under a bill of equal protection for the unborn.